Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
We spoke about it, and I said, you have to write what you believe. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Sure, Jan.
CNN has tried to interview the former First Lady ahead of the release of her memoir, but her publisher responded with an unusual demand to CNN, a $250,000 price tag. CNN's Hadas Gold and I broke the story together today.
Can I be blunt here for a sec? Can you imagine the uproar if Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff demanded $250,000 to be interviewed? This after being non-existent on the campaign trail. I mean, just envision for a second the Fox News segments on this. They'd be endless, tan suit level overdrive. But yet, because it's a Trump, it's just crickets.
Sorry, it's the first time I'm seeing that. That's the weirdest promo I've ever seen. Like, the lighting... I'm sorry, I've written 4 books. I've never seen a promo like that. Sorry, wow.
In a bombshell new report, it is alleged that nearly 2 months ago, CNN reached out to Melania Trump's book publisher to request an interview with the former First Lady ahead of her upcoming memoir. After several exchanges about a possible interview, the publisher sent an unusual demand. An interview would cost $250,000. I mean, that's more than double what her husband wants for a watch.
My new Trump watches. We're doing quite a number with watches, and the quality to me is very important. The Trump Victory Tourbillon. This isn't just any watch. It's one of the best watches made. It's a tourbillon watch with almost 200 grams of gold and more than 100 real diamonds. That's a lot of diamonds. I love gold. I love diamonds. We all do.
In an email to CNN, Skyhorse Publishing sent a document labeled, quote, confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement that laid out the strict terms for an interview and use of material from the book titled Melania. And on top of that, the agreement stipulated that CNN should pay a licensing fee of $250,000. Of course, CNN did not sign the agreement. And days later, after a separate CNN journalist asked Skyhorse Publishing about the outrageous interview fee, the publisher said it had sent the payment by mistake. And how does Dr. Evil say it again?
Right.
CNN has tried to interview the former First Lady ahead of the release of her memoir, but her publisher responded with an unusual demand to CNN, a $250,000 price tag. CNN's Hadas Gold and I broke the story together today. Hadas, good to see you. So help our viewers understand from a media perspective how unusual a demand such as this is with such an incredibly high price tag nonetheless.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Most legitimate news organizations would never pay a public figure, especially the spouse of the Republican candidate for president, for an interview. Full stop. They just would not do that. Most news organizations have rules against any sort of payment to political organizations or to a candidate. So they would never pay for an interview with the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. And CNN has not and will not pay for such an interview. Now, in the past, media organizations have paid, especially when it comes to licensing photos or trying to get interviews with people who are involved in things like scandals or murders or the like. But paying for something related to politics, that in particular crosses essentially all of the media ethical boundaries. Now, a former First Lady being paid for a speaking engagement or for a book advance, that is not necessarily unusual. But Melania Trump is not just the former First Lady. She is also the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. So it is very unusual also that her team would send such a request and such a high amount for requests to a news organization. And let's be clear. Now, the publisher now says, after we reached out to them, that this was a miscommunication. But it's very clear in the conversations with CNN and in the contract that we've seen that they knew who they were dealing with, because the contract very clearly lays out that it's CNN that the contract is with and that it is for an interview. And I would like to stress there were several backs and forths between the publisher's team and CNN before this contract was even sent. So I will say that in their statement, the publisher says that neither Melania nor anyone from her team knew anything about the NDA, and the document that was sent reflected an internal miscommunication. This is coming from the president and publisher of Skyhorse. They went further and said, had CNN signed the NDA in the normal course of business, we would have approached Melania's team to discuss specifics of the interview, essentially. Now, that is also unusual. So what, CNN would have signed this, which would have been agreeing to pay, and then they would have discussed the specifics of the interview. I will say that Melania's personal spokesperson, as you reached out to them, they declined to comment. Melania has been interviewed by Fox News twice, actually, within the last couple of weeks. But Fox News said in a statement to CNN that they did not pay any fee for the interview, including any licensing fees for this. But just all of this coming from a supposedly professional team for Melania Trump, this request to a news organization. You and I both spoke to not only journalism ethics experts, but also experts in the realm of First Lady. They all said this is completely unprecedented and very, very unusual.
And we should note, even that the publisher I've been in touch with says that Melania Trump didn't know about it. $250,000 is the exact same amount that she has been paid for other things like appearance fees back in 2022 for several events, and around that amount for an event just this past year. So just putting that out there. Hadas Gold, thank you so much. We'll be right back.
But the thing is, this isn't the first time that the former First Lady has been called out for her grifting efforts akin to her husband. That husband she's rarely seen with. Late night host Jimmy Kimmel set his sights on Melania Trump in a monologue recently, criticizing the former First Lady for being just as shameless as her husband with the overpriced MAGA merchandise that she sells.
We are in the final stretch of the election when the candidates are supposed to be making their final push to run this country, and this nut's having a yard sale. He's selling so many things. I feel like there should be a law that says you can either sell coins or Bitcoins, but not both, and certainly not both in the same week. You have to make a choice. And then you have Melania, who's hawking a $600 Vote Freedom necklace right now with Lady Liberty on the front and nothing behind it, just like Melania herself. Melania has been raking it in. According to their latest financial disclosure form, I was surprised they filed them too, but according to their disclosure form, back in April, Melania was paid $237,500 for giving a speech to the log cabin Republicans at Mar-a-Lago. She got $250,000 for giving a speech at her house. But when you hear her speak, when she opens her mouth, you realize how worth it is. She says the log cabin Republicans is a very confused LGBTQ group. The event was a success. They raised a bunch of money. Everyone went home with a top secret document. It was good. And on top of that, Melania has been plugging her forthcoming memoir, which includes this harrowing tale from the night of their 16th anniversary when Donald was suddenly in the mood for love.
The loud knocking on my door sent a jolt through my body. The Secret Service agent told me I need to move.
Fortunately, they were able to get her out in time.
And the takeaway is this, as I stated from the get-go. Whether it's the amount for an interview, for a necklace, a Bible, a watch, how is it that we've become so accustomed to this family's filthy efforts to grift and extort the public that we just shrug it off as normal? It is not normal, man.
Until now, no American president had ever faced a criminal trial. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment for retaining and concealing classified documents. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment or a state indictment for trying to overturn an election or been named an unindicted co-conspirator in 2 other states for the same crime. No American president ever faced hundreds of millions of dollars in judgments for business fraud, defamation, and sexual abuse. Until now, no American presidential race had been more defined by what's happening in courtrooms than what's happening on the campaign trail. Until now. The scale of the abnormality is so staggering that it can actually become numbing. It's all too easy to fall into reflexive habits, to treat this as a normal campaign, where both sides embrace the rule of law, where both sides are dedicated to a debate based on facts and the peaceful transfer of power. But that is not what's happening this election year. Those bedrock tenets of our democracy are being tested in a way we haven't seen since the Civil War. It's a test for the candidates, for those of us in the media, and for all of us as citizens. This morning, we're going to do our best to put it all in perspective and analyze what it means.
It is not normal. And the fact that a month from the election, the Republican candidate can stand in front of the camera and flog a $100,000 watch to little to no reprieve, when you know for a fact that if the Democratic candidate did it, she'd be raked over the coals. It just goes to show how numb, misogynistic, and utterly backwards this whole gig is.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.